What's up, everybody? It's Matt. This is Colorado Kayak Fishing Club podcast, the cast. Thanks for joining us tonight. We got a cool show. We just had our tournament at Spinney Reservoir up in the mountains there, South Park area. We're going to have our winner from that, Mr. Paul Roth. And we've got Jason Duong, who is Paul's kayak. I don't know. We'll let you guys name whatever you guys want for that. But they're best buds. That they fish together all the time. For these tournaments, you see them trailing around together. Paul and Jason, no stranger to the club, both of them on top of the leaderboard all the time, it seems like. Paul's won AOY at least once, probably multiple times. Jason, I'm pretty sure, has been up there as well as on the board before. But let's get into it. I got a couple of things just as we're getting guys and gals into the chat here. Just make sure that you enable rights for StreamYard to be able to choose the your name so that we can see who it is popping up in the comments, and then we'll get into it. But I'll make the announcements with Paul and Jason in here just in case anyone has any questions. Paul, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Let me pull in Jason. There he is.
What's going on, guys?
Howdy. So a little housekeeping before we get straight into it. We've got the charity tournament coming up next. That's Spinney and 11 Mile. It's on July 13th and 14th. And I got a little slide for it here. It will show. So the cool thing about this charity tournament, all this money is just going straight back into Cash for Kids, the charity for the year. So pretty cool. Going to be a lot. It's kind of like MLF style. So, and then there's a bunch of different bonuses. This little poster or whatever will be up on the Facebook site. It's already up there, and you can go back to this podcast and look at it as well. But lots of ways to get bonus tickets, and then your tickets will get you into a raffle for a Titan X from Native and Waterline. As well, you got to be eligible for that, or you have to be there to be eligible for it at the awards. So, but there are going to be a bunch of other ones. I know Dynamic Lures is stepping up really big. Lindsay has some rods and reels and stuff they're donating, as well as a ton of lures and a bunch of other stuff there. So it's going to be a really cool event. Let's see how many people get there. If you are launching with a friend, so the way this is going to work is there's two lakes. There's South Park. You've got 11 Mile and Spinney that will be fishing basically the night before the captain's meeting. There's going to be a list of which anglers are going to which lake. If you are launching with a friend, like Paul and Jason often do, so you're trailered together, just get in touch with Jamie Sandrovich, the tournament director, and he'll make sure that you guys are on the same body of water so that you're good with your trailer if you're launching together. Additional to that, we've got board positions open for 2025 still. Our AOY standings are out, and we're doing a hat giveaway today. It's this hat, not the one I'm wearing, but the exact same type of hat. And I think it'd be fun to just kind of make a fun comment thing here. So the comment of the night is going to win a Shields hat. Okay. We'll get it sent out to you. I'll eat the shipping on it, or we'll see you at the next meeting or the next tournament. But in the comments, let us know. You can make a nickname up for the best fishing bromance nickname. It'll be like Paul and Jason out here. So if you got a nickname for bromance, fishing bromance. What's that?
Is it your birthday, Matt?
It is my birthday. My wife's gaslighting me in the comments.
I see it, man. Happy 40th, man.
Yeah, I'm old now. I'm over the hill, and that's my wife in there. Thanks. I'm surprised she'll be not watching here very soon. As soon as we start talking about fishing, and Sawyer Zone. What's up, dude? All right. Josh has some good ones. He's got to put them in the comments, though. Josh, you got to put them in the comments. He's got a good one. Okay, cool. So let me pull that away. And all right, Paul, Jason, let's go in order. Paul, we got you on here first. tell us a little about yourself. I know everybody is familiar with you because you take all of our money all the time. But tell everybody how you got into kayak fishing, like a little about where you grew up and what brought you to Colorado and to the club.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town outside of St. Louis, Missouri, like 20 minutes outside of St. Louis, Missouri, kind of like northern Ozarks. Kind of fell in love with fishing, just, kind of outdoor area. Spent a lot of time fishing small creeks and clear water for smallmouth and goggle eye in Missouri and the Ozarks, and a lot of stream fishing and small ponds for catfish is really kind of how I developed my love for it. My dad was kind of always into John boats and tinkering with motors, so we always had some kind of boat to go around on, and fell in love with fishing. Moved out to Colorado in like 2007 for work, and that's kind of actually where I met Jason. He was running a store, and I was kind of learning about the company, and came down there. And I did move my wife out to Colorado because I wasn't sure if we were going to stay here, if I was going to end up liking the job, and very quickly realized he liked fishing and I liked fishing, and we spent probably that month before my wife moved out every weekend actually going to the Dream Stream, and I had never really fly fished before, and Jason taught me how to fly fish, and really after that, I mean, we've been fishing one weekend or other or working together ever since. So it's funny in my household too. It's kind of the romance thing is I spend more time with Jason than I do with my wife, and there's been certain times in my life where that's just been true. But not to get too sappy, but definitely more like a brother than I would say a friend at this point. Considering part of my son even calls him Uncle Jason. So
That's awesome.
Really kind of family. That's why we're so close, and we travel together when we fish, and have a lot in common. Work together. I've been here 17 years now, so been around each other ever since.
Cool. And how did the kayak thing start?
Yeah, so I'm sure some of you all are familiar with kind of northern Colorado and Pella, and we really kind of got into kayak fishing there. But where we really started is because we were working together, we had a vendor take us to some kind of show in Florida, and we kind of convinced him, hey, why don't you take us fishing instead of doing some lame excursion or something. And Jason found a kayak guy who was guiding in was it Mosquito Lagoon, right by the where they launch off, what do they call that? NASA has their launch pad there. So it was kind of a cool atmosphere, and we went around looking for reds, and very quickly realized it was a lot better than being on shore constantly, and came back. We both bought kayaks and started going around the state, and then eventually, I'm not even sure, I think maybe Jason, you found the club, and we met at Chatfield one day, and the idea was, could we do tournaments? Would anybody be interested in that? So we've kind of been around since the beginning. I know some things started before that, but that was my first kind of introduction to the group, and we went to some mountain lake, I think, for the first tournament, and I was awful. I couldn't keep a fish on a board. I didn't know how to take a picture. I had the wrong camera. I don't even think I got a fish to score that day. And, it was so if any of you kind of have a tough time when you start, don't feel bad. I think that first year, I've been fishing my whole life since I was a child, and I could barely catch fish and barely measure them. I mean, it's kind of like the bumps of the road when you get started.
Yeah. I had a lot of that. I had I think my first tournament, I screwed up on how I measured my fish. I didn't realize like a quarter inch really mattered. So I was just kind of taking the pictures and stuff, and then I got disqualified on several fish for stupid stuff that it wasn't touching a line or just not reading the rules well enough. But yeah. All right, Jason, you are up next. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your history. What brought you here?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, fishing, just sort of like most of us, right? Doing it with Dad back in the day. A lot of bait dunking, every single weekend, chasing catfish and all that stuff. And then, when I got a little bit older, started chasing bass, and Pella was like that first spot that really got that itch. And then that was like pre-flood. That was, I was like 18 at that point, 17, 18, when I started kind of fishing there, and then just, kept fishing there for a long time. And back then, You kind of progress off of the bank to like a float tube and to like a pontoon, and then ultimately to a kayak. So, you know, kind of had all those different stages of kind of learning, you know, different ways to fish or how to get off the bank and how to kind of expand the fishing, or your fishing success. So, but yeah, you know, Paul kind of explained it with all the sappiness of our relationship as we've kind of grown. But yeah, we've known each other for a long time. And, you know, it's funny with the club. Yeah, I found the group, you know, just kind of accidentally, and that was before it was even on Facebook. So that was when it was in like this really crappy Google Pages type of deal. So it's like a forum essentially on Google. And, you know, I still have some of those messages in my email, and there's like a few people that are still kind of around that was in that group. And, you know, it's definitely a different thing. And, you know, at that point, I think it was just some guys fishing together, right? Or some guys that just were kind of talking. And there was really only a handful of people in Colorado that probably even had kayaks at that point, right? And,
Yeah.
you know, just kind of slowly progress. Because back then we were still getting looks at when, you know, you roll up to a lake, you're the only kayak on the lake, and people on belly boats kind of looking at you. And then, you know, it's just kind of, you know, growing from that point. And, you know, the club, of course, you know, grew a ton. And, you know, I was a president for a couple of years. I started off as secretary, spent a couple of years as the president. So, you know, 3 years on the board. And then, you know, we've just been kind of continuing the path, you know, learning every year, getting a little bit better every year, fishing a lot of the national stuff. Paul and I, of course, travel a lot. You know, I've traveled with you, Matt, and with a bunch of guys in the group. And, you know, I think a lot of people kind of look at us crazy, like, why do you kayak fish? Why do you spend all this money to get a boat? I think a lot of it is because of the club and the people in the club and all the people I've met. So definitely kind of, you know, appreciate all that aspects of things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree. There's definitely people that look at us like we're nuts. And we probably are, but there's way worse habits or things you could be addicted to than going out fishing all the time. So
You guys notice the looks we get this year with motors? People are like confused when you're like pulling by them with a kayak with a motor and all the other craziness on it.
I've gotten some. I think they're impressed now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's definitely some looks out there. Some are good, some are bad. I think the boats, they're kind of understanding that, because a lot of, like, if you look at the tournament stats for this club, like last year, I think we fished, was it last year or the year before, we fished Trinidad the same day as one of the bass boat tournaments out there, and they got whooped on out there.
Whooped their ass.
And so I don't think that they look at us as just like some crazy guys on a little piece of plastic anymore, because there's guys in this club that would whoop up on them with a kayak, you know.
I sold my kayak to Brian White, who started fishing our tournaments this year. Brian's super good guy.
Great guy.
Fishing, and he comes from the boat scene, right? And I asked him when, you know, I gave him, you know, I showed him the kayak and I'm selling it to him. I just kind of asked him how he got it, you know, why is he making that switch from the boat world to the kayak world? And I know he fished for or with the Southern Club down here. And he just kind of talked about like that Trinidad trip was kind of an eye opener for him, because he looked at the numbers. He's like, wow, it looks like, you know, it's really competitive over there. They're putting up really big numbers. And I guess he heard us like kind of giving each other like a hard time, talking a little shit on the water. He's like, they look like they're also having a really good time. Like, you know, like it's not, I think with the boat scene, some of the stuff, I've done a few of like the ABAs and stuff like that, and everybody's really nice, but there's a different vibe there than with our club or different clubs that, you know, you fish with kayak. So I think it's just been a little bit different, but he's kind of joined just because I think that Trinidad tournament really showed him the potential from a kayak and the fun it is and the simplicity of it, where it's like, you know, less to worry about and all that stuff than a boat, but still really capable. So, you know, he made that switch, and now he's, you know, having a little bit of a learning curve this year, but I'm no doubt he's going to be kicking some ass here pretty soon.
No, absolutely. I camped next to Brian at Trinidad for CKB, and we ended up just talking at a picnic table for hours, and great dude. But yeah, he knows too. He's like, once I get this hook set figured out in this kayak, he's like, you guys better watch out. And I know he's going to crush some people eventually. So, but yeah, awesome dude. But hey, let's get into the tournament for Spinney. So Paul, you obviously won it here. I got the Tourney X popped up. I'll pull it up here. It was a tough day, like it has been out there before. But Paul, you had a limit. It looks like there were only 4 limits that day. I was actually one of the judges down there. I was on a camping trip down at Trinidad again with the family, but saw a bunch of trout coming in. It looked like some smaller ones, some really nice trout. If you look at like Brett's 3 trout there are insane, but not a whole lot of limits. So Paul, just kind of talk us through what the day looked like for you, and if you kind of felt that struggle that it looked like a lot of guys had on the water, guys and gals.
Yeah, I pre-fished it the day before, and I noticed right away, because you always notice at Spinney where you're catching big trout. It's pretty noticeable how the day is going to go, and instantly started catching silver stockers that were 12 to 15 inches, which was a little surprising. So I thought, well, I'm probably doing the wrong thing, and I caught a couple of pike, and then of course the weather got really crazy about 1 o'clock, noon in that area, and had to get off the water. So I didn't really feel like I had a great plan. I caught a small limit, and I was like, well, at least we're going to catch some fish. And started off the morning, it was I would say noticeably tougher. That was concerning. My plan was in the morning with some jerk baits and stuff, trying to get some early morning pike out of the grass, and I got nothing. So I trolled around for dad, which has always been really reliable there, and no bites. So I was pretty concerned, and tried a Taz and started getting some bites right away, and they were all small trout, but just kind of feeling good about at least catching some fish, and had a small limit of trout to start with, and trolled around for I think a few hours more, and still felt really off. And I think about 9:30 or 10, I just made a big move across the lake, and the water over there was pretty dirty, which was unusual there for, I don't know if there was water running in. The lake seemed up to me, and just looking for grass because I needed to catch some pike, and put a chatterbait on, and trolled for like a minute and caught that first big trout, the 24 and a half, out of the grass. I was stuck in the grass and ripped it out of the grass, and it hit it like a train. I think I can't remember somebody was close to me, and like real close enough that we could talk, and I was like, oh man, I think that's a big pike, and it jumped out of the water like a rocket, and it's like, nope, that's a trout.
That's awesome.
Pretty amazing fight. They're so strong there, it's unbelievable. I don't know what it is about that lake. I swear the fish are stronger in that lake. They just for whatever it is, their food or their way of life, I don't know, because it's shallow and grassy, fish tend to be stronger. And then I just went with that. I was like, well, maybe that'll work for pike too, and caught a pike right after that, and went right through that same grass patch again and caught my next pike, and that was essentially it for the day. It got really calm. There was bugs all over the surface. Nothing was eating off the surface. It was kind of a confusing bite, and I just trolled around a Taz for a little longer, and I think I got a 1/4 inch upgrade, and just pretty much do the thing I never do, which is look at the scoreboard. Fish in that second pike, and realized I was screwed if Brett caught anything of a pike, and sweated it the rest of the day, where I'm probably going to finish second or third, because there's no way if he catches that fish, I'm done. So some of this tournament stuff is just luck at the end of the day.
Yep, absolutely. And just looking at the numbers, you've got a 24.5 inch trout, and then I think you had a 24.5 inch pike as well. So when your trout are as big as your pike, it's awesome. Brett Wendling had a 26 1/4, a 24.5, and then a 24 inch. Those are all trout.
I saw that 26, and it looks like it has a fish in its belly.
It might. I'm probably
you can
pull
see
it
the
up.
outline in it.
I'll pull it up here. I can present it here. Let me share that screen. It's pretty wild. I think it's pulling up. Yeah, check that guy out. Isn't that wild?
It definitely looks like it has a fish in it.
So yeah, it's that's insane. But I mean, that's how it is up there. Last year I caught a 25 and a 24, a 25 bow, and then a 24-inch brown, like back to back. It was just one of those weird days, So, and the way they fight is awesome. But yeah, so that puts you up in first place with 100 inches. Like next was 96 and a quarter. So I mean, you had it by a ways, but you're right. Yeah, one pike and Brett would have been over 110.
Yeah.
Probably. So
pretty typical.
Yeah.
He takes over 110, somewhere in the 1 teens to win a tournament there.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty fortunate to get away with that one.
Jason, you were right outside of the top 10 and 11th.
We're going to talk about this.
No, you don't even want to go there.
No,
because you had the pike, but not the trout.
Yeah, I mean, pike caught a few pike, lost a few right next to the boat. I covered all sorts of things. I saw things I've never seen before at that lake. Like I just went all over the place. And I was talking to Paul afterwards. I think Paul. I think this is the second time this year that he's just mentally spun me in a tournament with like something like in Truman. He rolls up to me and I didn't think anything of it. I'm just catching a few fish. He rolls up, stops because we're struggling on day 2. He's just like, something's changed. It's not good. It just leaves. And I'm just like, dude, you can't just roll by, say that, just leave, right? Like, and this tournament, I'm seeing him. He's cruising around. I feel like I'm doing pretty similar things, and I'm just not popping them. I'm not catching them, but. I think there's a finesse to the game. I think, Paul, of course, knows that lake very well. I think, Alex and I were talking about it. I think, 4 out of 5 of the last tournaments, he's placed first. I think the one tournament out of those 5, he was second. So, that's the failure mark right now, is being in second place for him there. So I think, definitely has that place on lockdown. Tough thing for me. Trout is a tough way for me in general.
Corey's talking some smack here.
Yeah, I mean, trout has ruined my life pretty regularly the last couple of years in our tournaments, and just another tournament, another time that trout broke my heart.
Did you pre-fish, Jason, or you just go straight?
Rolled up late Friday night.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was wondering if the pre-fish game was different. I know Paul said it kind of changed on him, and we had that. A lot of guys had that at Trinidad for the CKB stuff, where the bite just kind of changed that day for them. But cool. Well, cool. Is without saying like what your favorite lake is of giving anything away. I mean, these are probably some of your favorite lakes, I'd imagine, right? Are these some of your favorite places to fish, Paul? Because I mean, you always do really well there.
Oh, I told some of the guys when we were leaving. I'll tell you a little story about Spinney, because it's my favorite place, definitely. And part of it, I had kind of a connection with my family. So obviously Jason and I fish constantly. So all my fishing stories include Jason. But we went out there, well, my son's 15. So maybe 16 years ago. And we were fishing on Mother's Day, because my mother's back in Missouri and my wife wasn't a mother at the time. And we just, you do the thing where you get up at 3 a.m. and you drive out there, and we were bank fishermen at the time, so we were fly fishing from the shore, and my wife calls and says, "Oh, I took a pregnancy test. I'm pregnant," and we had been trying, and I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome." And she's like, "Well, it might have taken like 6 or 7." I'm like, "Stop taking pregnancies. We're so young. We didn't have any money." I'm like, "We're good. Like, this is what we wanted to do." And it was funny, she first time mother and all that. Like, well, can you come home, so we can be together? And I'm like, "Jay, we need to go home." So we were there like 10. We caught like 1 fish each, and we pack up and leave. So I kind of feel like, I don't know, I have a connection to that lake in a weird way, like it's meant to be, or something with that area, or that area of the country, or I don't know what it is, but I've been fortunate, and Jason and I, we fished in Canada and Florida, and we get to travel around a little bit with work and things, and we get some trips kind of thrown our way. And I mean, that area of our state, at least, I don't know that I'd prefer fishing anywhere else. But Spinney, 11 Mile, Dream Stream. I mean, if you're looking to catch big, powerful fish, which I think we all are, or they like trout. I would argue those trout are on a different level.
100%.
You really can't beat it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm going to be moving out of here probably, I don't know, this winter or next summer at the latest. But yeah, if I come back to fish in Colorado, it's definitely those two lakes probably. So it's just it's special out there. I mean, even just not the fishing. I've had elk bugling on the bank one morning while I was out there. There's something about that place. It's just special. So you talked about traveling a little bit, Jason. Let's kind of transition a little bit to the travel stuff. I know you and Paul travel. We all kind of we'll do the all American stuff, but you take it up a notch. You go out of the country. It seems like once a year now. You're kind of doing a pretty exciting trip. So talk to us about kind of how you got into, some of these trips in South America that you've done and what that looks like. How do you even, I don't know, research it to find where you're going to go? Because you go straight primitive with it. It's not like, hey, I'm just going to go find, on hotels.com, I'm going to get a place and get a guide. No, like what, how do you get into this and what's it look like?
Sure. Just circling back real quick to Spinney being Paul's favorite lake, when he found out his Arjun was being born, or that Arjun was created. It was actually the first day that Paul basically ruined my fishing on Spinney and made me go home. That was the first time that Paul was just like, just wrecked my life on Spinney. And it's been basically a long history of that since. Probably a lot of
thought about it. You were always better at trout fishing.
I probably just need to grab my fly rod and get back out there and just pull a little bit of that, Brett in me and fly fish a little bit more. And by the way, just to bring it to the chat, by the way, is like on fire, and it's like a family affair because Stormy really wants the hat. There's like
she really does, but. So you said Arjun, right? Is that your son?
Arjun is
because he's got a comment in here. The hooked homies.
Nice.
So he's out here watching too.
I'll save some of the other ones for later. We'll go through a laundry list of them at the end. We do see the comments coming through here.
Well, I'm sure some of them are going to be hurtful too. That's fine.
There's I'm going to have to scrub them before I read them on here. But yeah, go ahead, Jason.
No, it's all good. I mean, traveling's always been a big thing for me, and I use fishing as just basically a portal to travel. And for a long time, Paul and I, even for the kayak stuff in the U.S., we've been able to go fish, Louisiana and Alabama and Texas numerous times, and Missouri most recently. So been around a lot, just different lakes, a lot of bucket list lakes, like Lake Fork is a bucket list lake. Fishing Gunnersville, one of my favorite places. I've done a couple tournaments on there, one of my bucket list lakes. So, I think the kayak stuff has really kind of helped see a lot of places and catch a lot of bass and fish a lot of different ways that we don't fish here in Colorado. So I think that's been super cool. And then, fly fishing for me, I've traveled with it for a long time. Like my first real saltwater fly fishing trip, I was 18. I went to Baja, right, chasing roosters and Dorado and stuff. And then me and a few buddies back then started a fly fishing magazine, like an online digital magazine. And we met a few organizations and things like that where we were able to make some connections and do a little bit of traveling on the side at that point. So, was able to get to Cuba really before it was open. So we, kind of got in there the back way, and then fish a couple other different spots. And in the last few years, I think not to get too far deep into it, but my parents passed a few years ago. I think it was about 3 years ago now, and I think with their passing just kind of lit that bulb of hey, you never know when it's too late, right? And Paul and I just talked about this over the weekend, where it's you don't really know when it's all done, or to a point where I don't want to do this stuff when I can't do this stuff, right? When I'm bent over, sore, I barely can walk, and try to travel to some of these really crazy places sometimes. So I think that's been really the trigger point for me to try to kind of chase it down. I did Belize a couple times last couple of years. Earlier this year I was in Colombia, and right now I'm kind of working on a trip to Guyana. So, in October is kind of the date right now that I'm working with the the people down there to kind of schedule, see the availability, and look at flights and stuff. So I've been working on that last couple of days. But going to Guyana, it's going to be probably a little bit even more remote and a little bit more rustic than Colombia. Guyana is a little bit different country than Colombia, a little less money, a little bit less people, a little bit more unspoiled jungle, a little closer to Brazil. So, I think it's just kind of a different atmosphere. But I'll be chasing like arapaima is going to be like the big target species down there. And then like Payara and peacocks and a bunch of other stuff. And even doing like research, honestly, just trying to find like cool, interesting places, not the run-of-the-mill stuff. And of course, I think the only reason I know about arapaima is probably Jeremy Way from River Monsters and him getting hit in the chest with one and having to go to like the emergency room, right? That was like my introduction to arapaima.
Gosh.
So after that, I was just like, man, I want to catch one of those. And, there's a lot of those, little lodges that are run by like the indigenous people in those regions that are really kind of cool. And, of course, they know the rivers best. And you also kind of immerse yourself in a little bit of that culture down there.
Good Lord. Yeah, I'm trying to pull up a picture of the arapaima here. Let me see if I can pull that up. But so how do you get in touch with like the tribes that you stay with, or like how do you set that up? Like
a lot of these places, like this is like these type of camps, like the one I was at in Colombia, like you have to pay like I think it's called a native fee or an indigenous fee, which was whatever. I think it's like $500 or something like that. And that fee completely goes to that local tribe, right? Those local people.
Okay.
And they use those funds to build schools, to build wells, to, build structures and all sorts of things in those really, really remote areas. So a lot of those places, they've kind of worked on trying to, supplement some of this stuff. And in Guyana, it's kind of interesting. Like some of the lodges there were actually supplemented by Costa like 10 years ago, just because like there was a lot of conservation issues and poaching and all this other stuff, to a point where they were starting to run out of some of the resources. So they discovered fishing, and fly fishermen in general will spend money to be in some of these weird and crazy places. So they started kind of running these programs and learning how to guide and all that stuff. And they actually use the money to support the community and also a lot of the conservation for the animals and the fish in that region and stuff. So I think it's kind of cool, especially when you get into those really like far-flung places.
Yeah. So is this an arapaima right here?
It is. Yep.
It's
the biggest scaled fish in the world.
Really?
The scaled freshwater fish in the world. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that sounds a lot like Ronnie. He took a trip to Africa for a hunting trip, and it was very similar. They weren't allowed to take any meat. It kind of feeds the village, and then they do a lot of the money all that money basically goes back into that community there for that tribe. So really cool.
It's awesome. Funny thing, man. Like you talk to like some of the conservation groups out there, and some of the anti-hunting and anti-fishing groups. I think if you look at the facts and everything, I think fishermen and hunters are probably the biggest conservationists and probably added the most to that bucket to help, save those different places and regions, even locally, right? Like our fishing licenses and hunting licenses go far more towards, saving them than any post on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Well, cool. Let's transition out of there. I do want to talk about a fun story that we had happen earlier this year. First tournament of the year at Boyd. What happened at Boyd? It was really cold. It was snowing. It's the first tournament of the year. And Paul and Jason showed up. Jason had gotten a brand new trailer set up over the off season. If you guys don't know, Paul and Jason roll together, so they got like tandem kayak set up on that, and you got both of the like Yakima rod boxes. Just tell us how your day went there, Jason.
Well, Paul bailed on me. Well, he drove himself because he's just like, because he's actually closer to Boyd Lake than I am. So and neither of us lived too far from it. So he drove down there himself. If you guys don't remember, there was a ton of snow and it was an adventure going down there. There was like cars in the ditch. It was wild, right? It was just a wild. It was our typical boy tournament at the beginning of the season, but it was a wild day. So I take my nice hour and a half in my trailer, hour and 15 minutes, snow, all that stuff, get there, get in line to get inspected. My kayak's covered in black snow, my trailer's covered and all that stuff. I'm like, awesome. And then all of a sudden I look up and I was going to try to like grab my rods and I look at my keys and I didn't bring my key to my black box, to my Yakima box. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, what do I do? I'm like, I'm not driving home in this blizzard to go get my stuff. It'd be another hour and a half. I call up Paul. Paul's already fishing. I don't even know where he's at. He doesn't even answer. He he rejects my call. I'm like, great, awesome.
I actually kind of got lost that morning in the fog and stuff. I knew where I wanted to be, but I didn't know where I wanted to be. So I eventually answered my phone.
Then I bumped into our president, Mr. Josh Hines, who was amazing enough to loan me a X-Bride medium light spinning rod that I used.
That's a nice loaner.
It's a nice loaner. I think he dropped it into the lake last week, so it's a bummer for Josh. But I used it, and I just casted it. I didn't catch any fish that day. I literally just went out there, putted around, got snowed on. I think there was like 6 fish caught between 30 people that day or something like that. So it was a brutal day, of course.
It was miserable.
But yeah, it was the best. My tournament season this year has not been awesome. It's been plagued with like some mishaps and rookie mistakes and stuff that I should definitely know better about. But we'll get back on track.
I'm right there with you. We can't all be like Paul, so it's fine. Well, if we're talking about the stats,
dude, don't let the cool demeanor fool you. Like he has meltdowns too. He just
I don't believe it.
Faster than we do. So
that's why I don't have a camera on mine. You don't want to hear me cussing the whole time.
Nice. All right, well, let's pull up the AOY stats. So I'm talking about the season here. I got multi pulled up first. We'll just bring that up. Hey, look who it is. Paul and Jason, 1 and 2. Pretty close, really. And Johnny Machego's up there. Alex, Brandon Madem. I don't know why it's spelled Brendan. Jamie's up there. Brad. There's Brett, and there's plenty of time on this one, especially to make up some good points on it thoroughly. But that's kind of what it looks like up here. Paul, you're leading the way. I know you won multi 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think I won it 3 times.
You've won it 3 times. Good God. Okay. All right. How many times have you won, Jason?
I've won the bass side once, which Paul has never won, so he sucks at bass fishing.
Awesome. He kicked my butt at Trinidad a couple weeks ago.
I'm still working on the bass thing. Figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. And then let me pull up bass. A little harder to read here, but yeah, Paul Roth again up there. And this one, this is kind of different because Boyd was such a tough tournament. That was kind of a big point swing for the people that caught a fish up there. So yeah, Paul, Eric Ali, always up there on the bass game. Shane, real happy to see him up there. A really great dude. And then you got Flanavan up there, Chinchar, Caleb, Alex, and James. Bunch of common names up there, and Leslie's up there rounding off the top 10. So there's a lot of room left in the season for I think anyone could have it still on both sides of it. But Paul, you definitely do have a good lead. I think when you won multi 2 years ago, didn't you win it in the first 3 tournaments? Like you had like 100, 199 or something like that.
Yeah, that was it. I think I won like Spinney back to back or something, and that really made the difference.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Never stop fishing Spinney, whoever the directors end up being.
Yeah,
20 or something.
I think if we didn't go back to a lake, I don't think Spinney or 11 Mile are 2 that you would ever have to worry about that. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, it rounds out the AOY. All right, let's do the talk one thing real quick before we do this hat giveaway. We got a hat giveaway. See the comments coming in here. Keep them coming. We'll go through them.
There's some good ones out there.
There are some good ones on here. I just want to talk briefly about my day at Pueblo on Monday. I was off on Monday. What's up?
Oh, yeah, I saw that crazy situation, man.
It was wild. So I looked at the forecast. I always look at the winds. Bottom line, it just got windy. It wasn't predicted to have any wind at all. I think the max was like 6 gusts 13 or something on all the apps that I had, and it picked up pretty bad wind coming out of the north. And I was over by the dam. There's that island there, and I tucked in between the island and the tires, and I was like, okay, I'll get tucked in there. I was looking at my phone, looking at like 3 or 4 different weather apps. I was even looking at the weather at Pueblo's airport to see what they were reporting and like what they were reporting for the next couple hours. And it was going to get worse. Like it was going to be like gusting over 30 to 40 miles an hour. I was like, I need to get off this water. But I tried to do it, and it was white capping, and I ended up coming back to the island. I wasn't comfortable going out, it was the sketchiest conditions I'd been in. So I go out, I come back, I'm looking at my phone again, and I hear a dude on the back, and I was like, hey, I look behind me, and there's a kayak. It's like a super cheap, like Walmart special, and it had 3 people on it, 1 on it and 2 hanging off the side. And I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And I was like, hey, can you guys get to shore? And then as I'm talking to them, I realized that the person who called me was actually in the water and not with them. And he was about 50 feet away from them, just in the middle of nothing, in about 45 feet of water. And the water temp was 67 degrees, which is still pretty chilly, especially if you're going to be in there for a long time. So I go pick him up. I take him to the island. I go pick up the kayakers and tug them and take them to the island. But I just want to talk about like a couple things that I learned from it. The first one was it was 100 degrees that day. Like the high was 100 degrees outside. By the time I got that dude that was in the water by himself to shore, all he could talk about is how freezing he was. It was 100 degrees outside. So he probably used a lot of energy, like just treading water and trying to swim. He couldn't, the waves would just take him away. I don't know why they couldn't swim to shore, but I don't know. They might have, I don't want to speculate on if they were intoxicated or not. Maybe, but I don't know. So I go back and get the other ones. And they were all out of breath pretty good. At least, well, not the dude that was sitting on the kayak, but the gal that they had in the water. And then the other guy. And before I went, so I got the guy to shore. Before I went to pick them up, I always keep a carabiner with a line on, with like a rope on it. And it's probably 20 foot long. And really, I use that to kick my kayak out from my dynamic dolly just so I can throw it in the water farther and then retrieve it back. But I'm always going to keep that on now because after talking to a couple people after I posted it, one of the things people said was even the guy that I picked up at first, I let him hold on to the side of my old town, and he was fine. I did have to push a little bit of weight to the right because he was on my left side just to balance out. But people have actually tipped over before because people are trying to, they're in a stressful situation. They might try to just get up. They might try to pull too hard. You hit a wave, and now the situation's way worse. So I'm going to keep that rope on it. And then the other thing that I learned is I'm probably going to start carrying like a throw life jacket, just some sort of extra kayak. It doesn't have to be like an awesome one, but a rescue type PFD for somebody to have that I can just throw out to him. And then I could just tug him with that instead of have him hold on to the kayak. And then also just for the people that, none of them had a life jacket. They didn't have any life jackets on the kayak or on them. But it got way worse as I left the ranger boat. The park ranger was zooming by. He went and picked them up. And then I actually drove back after I got loaded up. I drove back to that area. I just want to make sure everybody was fine. And I look out, and like another 150 yards off the water or off the beach, was the beach by the dam. There was like an orange inflatable, like an inflatable kayak or tube or something. I couldn't tell if they had life jackets on. So I go back to the ANS station and I asked the guy, I said, hey, do you have a radio you can contact that Ranger boat that was out there? I was like, there's another like inflatable in a bad situation. And these waves are probably 3-footers at this point. And the training that the ANS guy had was not great. He wanted all my contact information before he would like get on the radio and call. And I basically ended up being very like stern with him. I dropped an F-bomb. I said, you need to get the radio now. Like these people need help. You don't need to get my phone number. You don't need to get my name and like my contact information. I'm not going anywhere. Like these people might need help. So like get with them. And once he did, it was good. But I think it just goes out to just show like when you're out on the water, don't trust that like someone else is just going to take care of stuff. Like the boat for the Rangers wasn't even on the water until like I mean I had that whole situation with them and all the time before that. So by the time the weather really got bad, it was probably 30 minutes before the Rangers even had a boat on the water. So there's a lot of stuff that can go bad, and just be prepared for being able to deal with 30 minutes by yourself, you know, at least. You know, they might not be out there. But I know we had Matt Kern, he flipped his kayak over in Nebraska when we were out there with CKB. I did feel like I could have flipped it coming back in. I don't think there's a kayak that you can't flip. I mean, you can be loyal to whatever brand you want. That it's if you take a wave over the wrong side, you're gonna flip it. I don't care. There's not a kayak out there that's not flippable. But yeah, I just wanted to share that stuff, and it was something I had on the water that I learned some lessons from. But I don't know if you guys had any experiences like that, or I mean, you guys been out here in Colorado. It seems like Colorado is way worse because the wind picks up out of nowhere, especially up in Spinney and stuff. But
yeah, no, Jay, maybe I'll tell him about Aurora. Maybe you tell him about Lake Fork.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few situations. So I mean, like a few years ago during a tournament, a few of us had to go out there and help a few people in a canoe that flipped right off the point in the South Marina. Because it picked up, and I think it was like me and like Jeff Rising and another guy who had to go out there, and they had like a battery in the boat, so it was like a heavy ass battery. Canoes aren't the most stable things in the world. 2 people, one was like they had the life jacket on but wasn't buckled up or anything, so they were really struggling. And you know, I think it definitely happens. I mean, I hate saying it, but every single year we see a few people, you know, pass away on their legs because of life jackets and not wearing them in situations. I mean, I know I just read an article today that they're investigating a body that they found on Chatfield today, right? So,
yeah, they had one yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. I know it's hot, it's uncomfortable, it's not the coolest thing in the world, but you know, life jackets do save lives for sure. And then years ago, you can probably find the video on YouTube still. Jeff Rising posted it, and we were coming back. There's a handful of us fishing. This was TOC back in the day, Tournament of Champions. There's a handful of us fishing. You know, Johnny Waginka was there, Dave Kuzer. So there's a handful of us, and we all kind of tucked into this cove because it got so windy. Well, we can't be in that cove forever, so we started coming back. And I was in the Native Slayer back then. Actually, the Green Slayer that Paul had up to last year was the one I was in, and this was, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And we were coming back, which, you know, going back was okay. And you know, Fork is a challenging lake to get around on when it's dead calm, because there's like stumps everywhere that you get high centered on, you hit constantly and stuff like that. So you're trying to spend some time, you're trying to navigate through that stuff. You know, I turned back into the cove to where the boat launch was, and you know, 2 waves got me. You know, one lifted me up and set me a little bit sideways, and the next roller came in and flipped me over. And, you know, I lost, I don't know, 10 rods. I lost a bunch of stuff at that point. It was in 30 feet of water. It was in November, which, you know, I wouldn't say cold, But to your point, Matt, like, you know, when by the time my kayak was dragged to shore and I got to shore, because of the wind, the water temperature, and me just being in the water for that extended amount of time, I was freezing. I was uncontrollably shaking because of all the wet clothes I had on and stuff like that. I know Johnny Waginka took off his medium hoodie, his size medium, and I put it on, and it was like a shirt for me, but that was what was keeping me alive back then. And, you know, it was a situation, but thank goodness I had my people there. Thank goodness those people had you there. Was able to kind of get to safety. But I would say I make jokes about kayaks and brands and stuff like that, but it's just jokes. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. And a lot of times it's not even a kayak flipping. It's like in my circumstance, it was a bad decision that I made in the way that I got into that cove and how I handled those waves. But you also don't know like who else is on there. We've all had jet skiers probably get a little too close to us. We've all had wake boats get a little too close to us. So it's not all about you and your responsibilities and the decision making that you have. It's a lot about the other people that are on the lake and some of the decisions that they make too. So I think that's where head on a swivel, life jackets on, and watch out for each other.
Yeah, we had this is going way back, but it was a no-mo tournament, so a no-motor tournament on Aurora, and it was the first kayak tournament we had ever been in. And I had a sit-in at the time, like a $200 sit-in, and held 2 rods and didn't know what we were doing yet. And it really didn't call for bad weather. And then of course it's Colorado, so here you go. Like 10 o'clock or something, the wind. I mean, it was horrendous. It was really bad. And of course, there's that one ramp to get back to at Aurora. And we were on the other side of the lake, and desperately trying to get back. And thing was filling up with water. I think I couldn't see Jason anymore. I didn't know where he was, and I got off the water and definitely wasn't prepared at the time. Like, had a life jacket, but didn't realize. You forget how cold the water is. I know you mentioned that even in 100 degrees, it was 60, and I sure Aurora was colder that day, and I was shivering and miserable, just trying to get hold of Jason. Like, where is he at? And finally, it was raining so hard at that point too, and actually, I think the Dragon boat people were out there doing something, and it was on the news, like they had to go out and rescue them. So it's amazing how quickly it can get bad. Even Spinney pre-fishing that day, the wind was pretty rough up against the dam and splashing so high. It was, flash 8 feet in the air, sprays.
Yeah.
I was probably one of these people like, oh, motors on kayaks. I don't know. I wasn't really a huge fan. And now that I kind of got one and I've experienced it, and I think about it from a safety standpoint, how quickly I can get to shore now, I think it's probably a good idea and I know it's an expense for people, but from a safety standpoint, it's probably worth something to think about if you're on the fence about, does it mean anything to my fishing? Maybe, but the safety part of it, being able to almost get to 5 miles an hour or maybe more with the wind and, ditch it on the shore really fast is really valuable.
Yeah. I don't think that I could have gotten to those people and back, because I was using spot lock to hug into that island when the winds were kicking. But I guess this will tell you how bad the winds were. My motor was coming out of the water as those rollers were coming on my way back to shore. So I would basically, all I had at that point to control my direction was my rudder, which I've got pedal steering. So I was doing a little bit of that just to keep because it was coming straight out of the north. So I was just trying to keep the waves, on the exact, aft of the kayak and not hit the side at all. And when that motor would come out of the water, I puckered a little bit there for sure.
Real weird sensation, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was gnarly. I was like, oh man, I hope this park ranger boat doesn't have to come for me next. But it was sketchy. I pushed it definitely. I know my limit for winds of what I like to have. I don't like to tell people what it is, because I think everybody should have their own limit of what they're comfortable with. But I went past it that day, and I'll admit it, and I'll back it off a little bit. But actually, Trinidad. I was getting ready to get on the water. CPW, if you haven't seen, they've got kind of an ad campaign going this year for life jackets. They're pushing it a lot more, it seems like, or maybe I'm just seeing it for the first time, but it seems like this year they're pushing life jackets a lot more this year, and specifically on kayaks and stuff. And I know we kind of joked about it on one of the podcasts. It's they've got videos of people in like a cheap, just super cheap kayak, going out there and doing their thing. And it's fun to joke about it and talk about it, but I really do want to kind of make a difference and tell people how important it is. So when I was at Trinidad this past weekend while you guys were up at Spinney, the ranger actually was out. I thought she was going to check my fishing license. She was just making sure that my wife was on a paddleboard behind me, and then my kid was Kenzie. She was in the back of the old town on a seat, and she just wanted to make sure everybody had kayaks, and she was checking everybody on the shore, or make sure that everybody had a life jacket. So I asked her if there was any contact information that we could maybe get someone on the show here and talk to them about kind of what goes into like, not the dark side of it, of recovery and stuff like that, but like, let's have that conversation about like how bad it is here and what they have to see sometimes maybe. So I'm trying to put together a show. I've got 3 of the kind of district park rangers contact information. I'm trying to get them on where we can work together. I think that we can provide a good value to them to show them like, hey, we're trying to lead the way in Colorado for the right way to do things. I don't think anybody in the club has a problem with an actual life vest or a PFD requirement to wear it while you're on your vessel. That could be like some, I don't know. I don't know if they would ever make a laws. I don't know if laws are going to fix it, but at least, there's obviously situations where if you have a PFD tucked into a hatch and you get into a bad situation, you're never going to get to it. So I'd like to at least talk to them about it and see what their experiences are. They're the ones that have to go in and recover these bodies and deal with that trauma that it puts on those families and on themselves too for having to go through it. So
I've actually, I agree with you. I think they're taking a more aggressive look at things, but I've actually been checked for PDFs or PFDs twice this year because I think one ranger pulled up to me and I don't think he could recognize the NRS as like a PFD, like he's already wearing one. I'm like, yeah, it's right here, like it's on me.
Yeah.
And then at Horsetooth, when we were fishing there, I actually saw them kick off a couple of stand-up paddleboarders for not having it, because I was in a cove and they rolled up and they asked them like, hey, where's your PFD? And they're like, we don't have one. They're like, you can't be out here. You got to go back and get it from the car. And they're like, we don't have one in the car. Can't be out here. You can be on the beach then. And push them off. And they watched them paddle and made sure they got back onto the beach so that they weren't just kind of hanging out there. And I saw that happen a few times. And I think for good, in my opinion, they're definitely starting to take a stance on it because I think it's an important thing for sure.
Yeah. I think it's tough for people to appreciate because I know when I moved out here from Missouri, like we were warm water, so like whatever, I can swim. It's hard to appreciate how cold water, how much it can affect you.
And just the waves, like everybody can swim in a pool, but you get out there with like waves and I should say everybody, if y'all don't know this, I don't know how to swim, so that's probably where I'm going to die is on the water. But I mean, like, on flat water, that's one thing, but you're in like a windstorm and you're trying to like swim out of that stuff. Like you could be like Phelps and you're probably gonna be struggling a little bit, especially if you're like super far away from the shore.
Yeah. Well, especially if you don't have a jacket on, if you don't have some sort of PFD on, you're going to take water in with those waves. Like you're going to breathe in water at some point. It's going to happen. So, all right, cool. Well, let's give a hat away. Let's look through some of these comments here. I know like 90% of them are my wife, who's probably just downstairs. I don't know how she's still watching this, but she is. So Josh Hines, a real love story. Good pun there. Trout Tryst. I don't even know what this reference is to.
Well, I think that's what we call last weekend. But we had a trout tryst last weekend, I would say.
Okay.
You can look up later, Matt. It's just
I'll look it up. If these are inappropriate, I'm sorry for pushing them through, and it's her fault. Nickname, the TRD and the fly not pointing at you, just in general. And then remember to put your plug back in. Yeah, Josh Hines, he needs he needs like a, you know how we put our alerts on our phone, like the alarms for like lines in and stuff. He needs to do that for putting his plug into his Outback, because he's forgotten twice this year already.
More fast.
Yeah, Angler's Affair. Okay. Bass bows. Stormy's just.
I just want to like Stormy's just up there having a good ass time. That's all I know right now. Stormy's having a good ass time somewhere in your house right now.
I don't think she even qualifies for a hat since she's literally downstairs. Casting crew. Okay. This is a good one, Josh. Spinney Mountain. Okay.
It's the original.
Yeah. Kissin' Casters. I like that, Matt. That's a pig. I don't think he's talking about you guys. I think he's talking about that trout that we saw. Yep, we saw this one, the Hooked Homies. I like that one right now. That's my favorite right now. Paddle Pirates, okay. And then the Roth Stormy. These are getting a little on the edge. Taking resumes for another Matt to join the club. 4 is the magic number. That's right. We've got 4. I'm pretty sure. But we'll always accept more Matts in the club. And if your name is Matt, you have a good chance of doing well.
I mean, most of the Matts are cool. Matt Arledge just a little on the fence, but that's fine.
Oh, yeah, right. I need the hat. Go get you a birthday. Gotta get you a birthday present. Sweet. She's going to get me this hat. Okay. Harold and Kumar throw a flicker shot. That might be my favorite one right now.
I think that's a little racist.
Oh man, Arjun's got a couple more good ones here. The Bait Bandits, the Real Legends,
dig it.
Fishing Phantoms. I'm digging all these. Tackle Titans, okay. The Walleye Wranglers. Okay. Chen's giving you props on your wall. I was talking about how good that wall looks too. Everybody loves it. Okay, Stormy's edgy again here. Fishing Furies, Rod Gods. These are some good ones in here.
Good.
The Lure Legends.
If you don't know, that's actually Paul's wife.
That's my wife.
That's Paul's wife. Okay. Her and your son.
The wives are represented today.
They are, yeah. They're probably just mad that we're on here. Like, what? They're just spying.
Tiny sticks.
Thelma and Louise. Eric. That's good. All right. 2025 tournament directors. Yeah. Chen, come on. You can sign up. You can sign up for the board. Spinney Mountain Masters. Like it. 11 Mile Real Brothers. Lure Love. Stormy's probably just going through her like romantic novels and just changing
50 Shades of Lures, just kind of going through it.
Changing the names on them. Trolling for Love. That's not a bad one. Reservoir Romance. Bait Besties. I like that one. Just Friends. Thank you, Scott.
Great movie.
And Josh Hines, Pro Angler 360. What's BSB?
Blue Sky Boat Works. He's trolling.
Oh, that's
he's trolling.
Josh,
he's trolling
Josh,
that other
it's not Pro Angler. It's just Angler. I remember seeing that. Okay, yeah. I know what he's talking about there. God, yeah. Josh is such a good troll. I thought he was talking about some different type of like stability or something. Okay, high altitude hookup. That's a good one. Broke Bass Mountain. Okay. Stormy. We might not read any more of hers.
Stormy's unhinged.
Get funding from the state to run a media campaign. That's not a bad idea. I think we could do it. Eric's probably got better ideas on how to do that too. Yeah, Stormy. We saw a couple. Yeah, this was at Trinidad. Their dog had a PFD on their sup with them, or they were in kayak, but they didn't have one on. But their dog did. The dog probably knows how to swim too. Jason, my 4-year-old is getting swimming lessons this week. I can talk to his teacher about a group deal if you're interested.
Well, she'll send me a photo of the teacher. We'll figure it out.
Oh gosh, I love it. All right, do you guys have a favorite?
Your call, man.
Your call.
There's a lot of
There it is. Hooked Homies. Is it Arjun or Arjun?
Arjun.
Okay. You got a hat, buddy. Paul will get it to you. I can ship it to you or give it to you next tournament. So
Sounds
I
good.
think he definitely took it there. The hooked homies is solid. Stormies were all offensive, and I don't think that you should have 50 entries here as well. She's probably gonna barge in the door here. Sweet picker, so.
Broke Bass Mountain, I think might be. I'm gonna probably get that tattooed on me.
I mean,
Does that mean
was that?
too? Is that
Broke Bass Mountain is my favorite. Definitely gonna get that on a shirt or a lower back tattoo or something.
All right, next travel tournament. I don't know if you guys are going to the native limits one or if it's all American, but we're gonna have to schedule some time in for tattoo shop for you two.
Let's do it, man. I'll be at Lake Fork. Alex and I are TDs for that event, so I'll be at Lake Fork in November for that tournament. I know. Talk to Paul. Paul might come down to fish the tournament. Matt, I don't know if you're coming down, but it's a good time, right? I wish we were doing a different lake than Fork, but Lake Fork, of course.
Heard a bunch of people kind of say that about that, but yeah, I mean, Fork's still like a.
Yeah.
Awesome
I mean,
lake.
selfish.
I was, yeah. Who said Broke Bass Mountain? Was that Josh?
No, that was Stormy.
Was that Stormy? Okay, yeah, of course. Okay, all right. She can have this hat. So there, Arjun gets one, Stormy gets one. Everyone's happy.
situation?
All right. Cool. Everyone's taken care of. All right, guys. Kept you here long enough. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and for just spending a little time talking about your experiences in the club and stuff. Thanks for all you guys have done on the club as well. We've got the next tournament is charity tournament, 13-14 July. Everybody gets signed up for that. And if you do have a double launch that you're trying to do, if you're trying to launch with a friend, just get in touch with Jamie, and he'll make sure that you guys are fishing the same lake on the same day. Other than that, I don't have anything else. You guys got anything you want to plug, sponsors, or just people that you want to say something nice about?
Sponsoring me, so.
Screw Alex Ross. Yeah.
Thanks,
All right. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Cool.